Hello everyone, this is Aaron. Now, um, every now and then, if you've ever looked at any of my streams or you've managed to chat with me on my Discord or something like that, you may have occasionally seen me refer to the fact that I have some sort of game development background, because a lot of my commentary keeps going back to game mechanics and level design, and whether it's leading me through the game correctly or in an intuitive manner or something like that. But I've never really explicitly talked about what my actual background is and how it kind of keeps influencing the way I think about a game, especially as I play through it and try to review things. So I went to university specifically to study games, but I've been studying games and looking at developer commentary in my own time for ages and ages, during, before, and after that. And one of the biggest games that I studied was Fallout New Vegas. And I thought I would be a little self-indulgent on this channel. I suppose this entire channel is self-indulgent, but I would just open up the map for Fallout New Vegas and kind of walk you through the kind of level design and quest flow of the game and why I appreciate it so much and why it's such a great example. And this is very off the cuff. I'm just recording this all in one take, so maybe this will help you kind of get into my headspace or kind of see the way that I think about video games. So the thing about level design and quest flow is that they're kind of related, because it's all about laying out goals for the player to travel through, and which means that some of these concepts are interchangeable, but it can also be scaled up and down. It can be like a small individual level, or it can be the entire flow of an open world. And there are lots of open world games these days, and one of the main goals of an open world is to make sure that you're actually traveling through, like the player is actually traversing through every bit of terrain that you've made, with leaving as few gaps as possible. Part of this is really about making sure your work in making the world is actually worth making. So there's really little point in making an area if you can't get some kind of guarantee that at least one player is going to traverse it. And the way you do that is by making sure that you have a quest goal that leads towards that location or something towards that. Zelda Breath of the Wild came out like a decade later, but is a fantastic case study on this, because in one of their DLCs, they actually expose their entire telemetry system, Nintendo's entire telemetry, which tracks your movement, called the Heroes Path. You can see copies of this online where people publish their Heroes Path, and you can see every player's path is not only different, but they traverse through and use the entire space. It's almost like a mathematical space filling curve. And that's really one of the goals of open world design over regular level design. If you go to before Zelda's paradigm shift, however, open world level design is really just a scaled up version of level design, where it typically follows two major concepts, which I learned in school, which is analogous to a bicycle wheel. So you have something called the hub and spoke model, and the rim, the ring model, where you follow the rim of a bicycle. So you can probably intuitively envision this already, but the hub and spoke model has the player kind of begin in the center of the bicycle wheel, and then they go out to each different spoke in any kind of order they choose to fulfill their goal. And it has the appearance of non-linearity, but the main goal is that you tick every single box. It doesn't matter which order you tick the boxes in, as long as they're all ticked. And the hub can be figurative, or it can be literal, like the hub of a city, or it could be a crossroads in a path. The alternative is the rim of the bicycle, where you travel along a linear path, But every stop along the way, you run across the connection of the spoke, and it all contributes to a central goal. So when you're going through the entire linear level, you're constantly reminded of that common goal. Now, the entire quest flow of New Vegas actually follows both of these models. It follows the game's storyline follows a 3-act structure. Here's a picture of the game world map, and I'm going to use 3 different colors for this. So like RGB, Act 1 is red, green is, yeah, you know that, you get the idea. So you begin here, and the first act of the game is to essentially find
Game
Benny.
was rigged from the start. What in the goddamn?
And when you find Benny in New Vegas, so this is your goal here, in New Vegas, that is essentially the end of Act 1 and 2. The act of talking to Benny is the transition point that triggers a ton of scripts. And the entirety of Act 1 actually follows the rim model of this bicycle wheel model. So once you finish leaving the tutorial area, you're essentially given a choice to go either left or right. So if you essentially follow from this path here, and the typical path is to actually go right and go along this entire very almost, well, it's not a complete circle, but it's an entire loop around the game world where you visit lots of different locations and then you arrive here. There is also an optional method to go left instead, essentially letting you bypass most of Act 1, and you can do so through 2 different paths, but either way you can reach it that way instead. And I'll just use a different color to indicate that. So this is still Act 1, and you can follow that path instead. But the main path is doing an entire loop around the entire game world, running into a lot of different places along the way. So you reach the NCR outpost, you reach Nipton, a bit of a crossroads here, which you can optionally go into Cottonwood Cove. You have Novak, and then you reach New Vegas. And this lets you see a lot of the game world and encounter all of the different factions. Then, once you switch to Act 2, what kind of becomes amazing, which I've always kind of admired, is that this out to in model of this bicycle wheel actually flips, and instead of going from a rim pointing constantly inwards to the main goal, so like every stop along the way you learn more about New Vegas, right? It actually flips, where you end up killing Benny in some way, usurping him, and all of a sudden, New Vegas itself becomes your hub. And your next goal in Act 2 is to actually go out into the world again and meet every single faction. And you can do these in any order. It's like it's the spokes of a bicycle wheel. But the thing I really appreciate and find admirable is that through the act of going through this world in Act 1, you've actually ended up tagging lots and lots of fast travel points, which means that it does very much resemble a hub and spoke, where one of the factions is to go to the boomers, so now you have a fast travel point that's not at them, but is quite close. And then you need to meet the Brotherhood of Steel, and Veronica is there, although the hidden valley is around here. So, and then you also have the NCR, and you also have the Enclave, which is here, and the Great Khans, which is here. And you also have a local faction here. So, and it looks like, and you can see here, that through following Act 1, 4 of your fast travel points, 4 of your locations are actually immediately available to you. And the other 2, you still need to go out into the world and discover. If you decide to take the opposite path, where you kind of bypass Act 1, you actually end up tagging these 2 fast travel points as well, so you actually still benefit. Then, Act 3 is really just the final battle, so you get sent there automatically, and it's really just here. I always found this to be an almost and like a really amazing quest flow design where you're given all of these options where it looks linear, but you're actually setting yourself up for a non-linear Act 2. Now, if you've managed to get through this little bit of game design ramble, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I've been thinking of Fallout again lately, and I've wanted to kind of review and talk about the particulars of a different game in detail. But the issue that I find is that like this is very esoteric stuff. I think the best way to really see how or why I take issue with these is to really get into the game developer headspace. But the thing is, Fallout to me is such a big rabbit hole because of how much I've studied it that I almost don't really want to talk about it except in passing. So I'm not really sure if I want to actually get involved with that kind of thing, especially given how long ago it was. So I thought I'd do this video first where I just talk about a good example that I admire and just kind of, see how it goes. So yeah, that's kind of it. So I hope I'm not gonna do a second take of this. So hopefully that went through just fine.